Some very good and positive news for AEW. It could actually be a game changer for the company. It's all coming up in today's video, but first we're going to kick things off with the Hardy Boys. Matt Hardy recently did an interview with the Daily Mail, and he did a little bit of insight. Two things that I really want to pinpoint. So first, he discussed his exit from WWE. When he left the WWE in 2020, he admitted that Triple H had actually offered him to go down to NXT, work the broken Matt Hardy gimmick, maybe even give him a little bit of a stable or something like that. But he chose not to go with that option. Obviously, we saw Matt Hardy go to AEW. They tried doing the broken Matt Hardy gimmick at first. Obviously, it was during the pandemic era. Just very difficult for them to actually accomplish. You know what I mean? A lot of people in the AEW fan base really weren't for it. I don't know if these people actually gave it a chance, because I felt like broken Matt Hardy used to be such a fun thing, especially back in Impact, but it didn't end up happening. And then Matt Hardy actually revealed some original plans for him in AEW with Jeff Hardy for last year in the summer. And he said it was very tricky because I feel like we were right on that point where I think the Hardys were going to have a run with the AEW tag titles. And we have had some stuff planned out for the next few months. And then once Jeff's incident happened, then everything was up in the air, you know, and I was just kind of like in limbo. So he's basically admitting that there was an opportunity for him to become a tag team champion alongside his brother. We all saw what went down with the Jeff Hardy stuff. And obviously AEW had to pull away from those plans, which is obviously really unfortunate that everything went down the way that it went down, because with the Hardys, I think everybody kind of knew that they're not going to be wrestling for that much longer. They're pretty much at the tail end of their career. And, you know, these guys have had such a great career, right? When you look at Matt and Jeff Hardy, the amount of championships they've won, the amount of accolades they've achieved, like, they've done a lot of great things in the history of pro wrestling. You see their influence a lot, especially in tag team wrestling. And without the Hardys, I don't know if tag team wrestling would be what it is today. So it is obviously very unfortunate, but this all basically happened because of Jeff Hardy's incident. And even with Jeff Hardy being back on television, you don't see him that much. You don't see him wrestling that much. They clearly don't have that big of plans for Matt and Jeff Hardy on television these days. And, you know, maybe that's just the right way to handle it, right? With that being said, though, the Hardys were often talked about because of how strong the AEW tag team division is. That's the reality. AEW does, since day one, really. I mean, they've done a really good job about tag team wrestling, and the way they position it and the way that they've, you know, incorporated it into their program. And, you know, it just seems like many of the other companies may not have a good enough tag team division like AEW. And I think that's why a lot of people were hopeful for Matt and Jeff Hardy to have a big run. Now, can this ever change? Yeah, you never know. Maybe Tony Khan changes his mind and they do something different here. But I would say don't expect anything that soon. With that being said, I want to turn our attention to some really good news surrounding AEW and their TV deal. So Fightful Select had dropped a couple interesting reports. This is the first one. Fightful Select is reporting that AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery have been in talks for the past several months over extending AEW's media rights deal with the company, and some sources believe an announcement can be made this fall. The report also states that WBD is looking for AEW content to be exclusive to its platforms, likely the reason why AEW pulled its Dark and Dark Elevation YouTube shows in favor of Ring of Honor, which is obviously on Watch ROH. Warner Bros. Discovery is reportedly not interested in ROH content outside of the integrated pay-per-views. And that is a really interesting thing. Fightful also goes on to say that AEW has been flexible with overruns and other Warner Bros. Discovery requests. The report also states that WBD has had an unspecified influence over what and who is shown on AEW program and who doesn't. AEW President Tony Khan has been tight-lipped on negotiations, but is adamant that WBD has shown its appreciation to AEW and remains fully committed. And I just want to throw this out there because anytime I talk about TV deals, I have always been in favor about Warner Bros. Discovery. Prior to AEW launching, when I was covering the prior launch of AEW, I talked about Warner Bros. Discovery getting involved in wrestling again. A lot of people will talk about ratings and all of these different things, and they'll say, oh, well, low ratings, the shows get canceled. That's just not how it works in 2023 anymore, okay? Warner Bros. Discovery has their own internal thoughts on where they want these shows to rank and how they want them to perform. And at the end of the day, there is a lot of money that could be made with pro wrestling. And on top of that, you have a company like AEW who goes exclusive with Warner Bros. Discovery, there's a little bit more incentive for them to keep it. And again, everything's all about intellectual properties. I've been following the Warner Bros. As a company for a long time prior to their merger with Discovery. This company has a lot of interesting things going on. We've seen changes within the company structure. We've seen changes with the employees there. We've seen changes with the properties that they own and the properties that they've been sending out to other companies. And here's the reality, right? Warner Bros. Discovery, their bread and butter is their IPs and their live sports. And what's really interesting about the AEW TV deal is the fact that nobody knows exactly what's going to happen with the NBA TV rights, because we know Warner Bros. Discovery has those rights currently. And there are some rumors that maybe NBC Universal can go ahead and pick up those NBA rights off of Warner Bros. Discovery, which, if that's the case, that obviously frees up a lot of money for Warner Bros. Discovery. I think this is a very interesting thing to take a look at and pay attention to. And this is largely due to another report that's come out today. And that is the fact that AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery have had talks about making a huge change to their pay-per-views. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select reported that one of the major proposals from their end to All Elite Wrestling is these events with Warner Bros. Discovery. One source telling Fightful that they mentioned they are very likely the very likely possibility of significantly expanding the AEW pay-per-view schedule even to one a month. We are told that this is something that Warner Bros. Discovery has wanted. Now, this actually makes a lot of sense because prior to AEW launching, I talked about the significance of WB Warner Bros. Wanting live sports. And in the past few months, you may have seen that they experimented with live sports. They've had some exhibition games and stuff like that from the U.S. men's national soccer team. And then we talk about All In, and All In's rumored to be on Max. That's why you haven't got the announcement yet, because when AEW does eventually decide to do more pay-per-views, when AEW decides to eventually do more special events on Max, they're going to want to make it a big deal, and they're going to want to incentivize people for obviously signing up for the Max service. And I think this is largely a big reason as to why the Max service has 3 different pricing points, because ultimately, if you're Warner Bros. Discovery, you charge somebody $20 a month, but now you get all of these movies, all of these shows, and you get one AEW pay-per-view per month. There is a huge incentive for that. We'll see, right? We'll see how this officially unfolds, but the idea of them doing more pay-per-views solves a massive issue, and that issue is storylines losing its continuity. Look at Swerve and Keith Lee, for example. Just the other day, there was a report that came out that AEW does eventually want to have that singles match. Dude, it's been like 9 months, right? Like, this is not continuous. This is not on a consistent basis. But if you're having a pay-per-view every month, you can have more payoffs relatively quicker. And truth be told, I think for AEW, that's what they need, right? More events. It's going to feel special. Some people will say, some people will disagree and say, well, the fact that they only have 4 pay-per-views makes that more special. But at the end of the day, it's not that AEW has no ability to tell stories. We've seen them tell good stories. The issue is sometimes it's not consistent or it's not continuous, and everything needs to have a purpose. If you're waiting 9 months to get a payoff for a storyline that is not continuously being built every single week or every few weeks, nobody cares. And that's the reason why people don't care about Keith Lee and Swerve anymore. You can call it back to its history, but it's not like they've been actually building something. If you're having a pay-per-view every single month, that solves that problem. And the reality is it's a very good incentive to tune into AEW, because now you're going to have a lot more to follow along with, and things will feel a little bit more important. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea for WWE. I support this 100%. And I'm just glad that AEW has a TV partner that actually cares about what they're doing, because I think one thing for WWE is that USA and Fox, they're both really, really supportive, and they're really good about supporting WWE and promoting WWE. And so is TNT and TBS, man. And that's a good thing, because that's what they need, man. You need good television partners. And look, more pay-per-views, more quality TV, more backing from the networks. While people on the internet are complaining about ratings and all that bullshit, the reality is everybody seems to be doing just fine, and that's a really good thing for pro wrestling.